My name is Michael Fischer. I'm a consultant anesthetist and intensivist practicing in Freiburg. I was trained in the University Hospital of Freiburg, and I worked most of the time there, but I also had exposure to other healthcare systems. And it reminded me, in the 90s I was working in the UK at the Royal University Liverpool Hospital, where I had my first exposure to intensive care unit. And we had this huge chart with all the patient records, the phone and the pager, and that's it. And that's it. And 5 years or 4 years later, I worked in Australia on a big pediatric intensive care unit, and that was the first paperless unit in Australia. And it was a big change. So I had to learn to survive. It was a big transformation, a digital transformation. For me, at the beginning, it was difficult, and I learned how to use it. And at the end, I was proficient, and I thought, well, this was my digital transformation. But over the last 30 years, I learned that there's not just one digital transformation. We get new ventilators, we get new devices like Care Station Insights, we get AI, and we have to transform every day again. That's what my perception. But I think the most important thing about it is that we have to use those sophisticated tools to drive change and to make medicine better. And I've got a very nice story for you today from our hospital in Freiburg. I started to work there 12 years ago, and actually the head of department, Professor Wiesenack, he wanted to come to Sevilla, but it's a family week, a holiday week in Germany, and the pressure from his family was too big, and so he said, well, Michael, I have to go with my family on holidays. Can you make this presentation? And now I have to speak about the conflict of interest. 15 years ago, I decided to split my professional life. I continued to work as intensivist and anesthetist, and on the other hand, I thought I have to learn more about anesthetic machines and ventilators, because I was the guy who had, beside the pencil, I had a screwdriver in my pocket, and so I love medical devices, and I accepted a job from G Healthcare, and I'm working as a product manager, and today we call it segment manager. So I have a split life, but today I'm in the role, my head is the clinical head, and I want to talk about change management, sustainability, and it's really a success story, and it began 12 years ago, and when we started, we didn't know where we were going, but it was important that we started at some point. This is the hospital where we work. It's in the Black Forest. Actually, it's a green forest, but it's called Black Forest, and we invented the Black Forest ghetto. You all know probably. It's a nice city, and it has got a reputation for being green. So the Green Party is leading, we have a green mayor, we have lots of bicycles on the roads. It's a nightmare when you drive your car through the city, because there's millions of bicycles on the roads. It's a university city, we have lots of young people, and it's an inspiring city, and we have a long history of being eco. And this is from the webpage of the hospital, of the town's hospital. Already in the 70s, there was a foundation of the Eco Institute, and then in the end of the 70s, we had the first solar apartment building in Freiburg. In the mid of the 80s, there was the foundation of this famous Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy. They produced a lot of knowledge there, and around this institution, there were startups coming up dealing with all those solar energy projects. A really nice cooperation between industry and institutions like that. In end of 90s, there was this Quartier Bourbon built a little suburb that was meant to be car-free. Not just car-free, so you had to have this mindset to live there. It's very different. So everything is eco. So you don't get these nice white breads when you go to the bakery. They're all brownish or gray. Yeah? And if you have a car, and if you own a car, you can't park it in there. There's a dedicated car park for that. And yeah, this was the blueprint for many other suburbs or things like that. And one of the highlights was in 2010, Freiburg had a pavilion at the expo, and we showed what we're doing in Freiburg, and it was a big achievement. The list is even growing further, and it's nice to live in the city. And of course, if you live in a city like that, and if you have a hospital, running a hospital like that, with employees who are green, customers and patients who are green, and you have a head of department who's green. Professor Wiesenach is a green professor. He comes to work by bicycle. I've never seen him. I don't know if he has a car at all. And so we are a green hospital, and we have task forces, and we are having projects to improve. So we are turning down all systems when we leave the operating room. So after the last patient, when you go with the patient to the recovery, you do what you do at home before you go on holidays. You switch off the light, you switch off the anesthesia machine, you turn off the PC, you even turn off the air condition. Yeah, and it's really nice. And when it's dark and when you're done, you bring the patient to the recovery room. So we have many projects, of course. We have motion detectors. We've changed all the halogen lights to LEDs. We are looking at every single-use device we have in the hospital and see whether we can use it multiple times when it makes sense. And then we're following the concept of the 5 R's if it comes to waste management: reduce, reuse, recycle, rethink, and research. But that's not all. So we go even, and we are awarded, we are on a regular basis, we get awards for that. But it's more than looking after waste and after electricity. We do more. So we support our employees to come to work with a bicycle. So our HR department established a lease program for all the employees. It's like a company car. So you get money, you go to a shop, you lease a bike, and it gets deducted from your salary, and after 3 years you can decide whether you want to buy it for a small amount of money or whether you want to give it back and get the latest new one. And that's very inspiring. Our car park, it's a safe car park with the electronic key. It's growing every year, and we are participating in a contest called Stadtradeln. It happens in summer, it's over 2 weeks, and there's an app, and all the cyclists in Freiburg, they use the app to count all the kilometers you're doing in these 2 weeks. And there's a competition, of course, inside the hospital, but also with other hospitals and companies in the city. Quite nice. And we were rewarded for best great place to work in the group of hospitals with employees between 300 and 500 people. That's really an achievement, and we think that all that contributes to this high quality of working. One project I want to talk about in depth is now reduction of CO2 emissions, and in 2023 the purchase department together with our professor looked at the data on basis of the bills we received from the pharmaceutical companies, and they could show that with the measures we were taking, we were able to show a reduction of 92% in those 8 years. That's a big achievement. But let's go deeper. Yeah, this is the profile of our hospital. We are a teaching hospital of the University of Freiburg. We are just next door, yeah, and we perform 7,500 anesthetic procedures per year. That's a lot, given that we are quite a small hospital. We are very efficient. We have a 9-bed recovery room. We have 16-bed intensive care unit. We offer not all surgical specialties. We have general surgery, gynecology, obstetrics, plastic surgery, and we have 2 orthopedic surgery. We don't do everything, but what we do, we are really good at. For example, we do more bowel surgeries than the University Hospital next door, with a much bigger department. We are the breast center in the southwest of Germany, so we do the most cases, and we have the same numbers of deliveries like the University Hospital. So we are very proud and we have a low staff turnover, which is very important. Coming now to this 12-year sustainability story. It started in 2012 when the hospital decided to buy ACE's care station. This is at GE the first fully digital anesthesia machine. It was a sort of digital transformation in the hospital, and the push for that came from the CEO, not from the clinicians. They were a little bit afraid that the anesthesia machine would replace them at some point of time. But today we know this is not true. And if we would take the machines away today, they were very unhappy, and we would probably have a higher staff turnover as a result. ET, for those of you who don't know what ET control is, mechanism behind, and if the system is in steady state, the system will go down to 500 mils to minimal flow anesthesia, and that's behind. So, as I said, the push came from the CEO, and he understood that it's quite clever. So he understood that manual gas mixing, fresh gas controlled anesthesia is very complicated. And if you remember the years when he started to learn anesthesia, this is a sort of art. You control, you monitor, control, monitor, control, monitor. But there's also patient, and there's lines, other drugs, phone, logistics, and you have so many detractions. And he understood that this is safe. So if you think that maybe 2% is the right target for the patient, you set 2%, you turn your back to the machine, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. And so, first ACE's care station were born. In just 1 year later, there were two publications published, one from the Women's Hospital in Liverpool, this huge center. What they did, they compared two groups. One was they were running the anesthetic in fresh gas mode as they were used to do in the past, and the other group was using tidal control, and surprisingly they had major savings. 53% when using sevoflurane, and desflurane 40%. Another study was performed on the other side of the world in Melbourne. They looked at greenhouse gas emissions, and they compared how they worked in the previous year and then in the first year using ET control, and they showed about the same savings, 44% savings. So on top of this better workflow, ease of use, we had this savings. So in terms of this sustainability story, this was a very big achievement. And so the motivation was high, and 1 year later, the next generation of anesthesia machines were purchased for the unit with this nice display, touch display, and everybody's happy. And we're still working with those units. And in 2014, Professor Wiesenack, he made his medical training in Freiburg and then moved to Regensburg and then came back, and he is, as I said, a cycler, a green head of department. And the first thing he did, he made sevoflurane as standard anesthetic and desflurane only for dedicated. The background is, and you know all those numbers, if you look at the global 20-year global warming potential of different gases, carbon dioxide is the baseline, basically, it's 1, and sevoflurane is 394, and this is tenfold higher. So you understand, this is a gas that we shouldn't use anymore, and also the lifetime is 9-fold higher, and it's clear if you don't have to use, if there's not really a good indication for using desflurane, if it comes down to sustainability, one shouldn't use desflurane anymore. But the story goes on. In 2017, Care Station Insight came to market, and we were one of the first hospitals worldwide to install Care Station Insights. We did it between Christmas and New Year. There was more time, and there was not the overall hectic we usually have. And at the beginning of 2018, we received the first numbers. We did the installation not in all parts of the hospital, just in 4 induction rooms and 4 operating theaters. we started with dashboards, checkout, agent cost, and lung protective ventilation. And data was flowing into the cloud. We got the first data back, and then we started the first project. And as I said, these tools are wonderful, but you have to use it, otherwise things won't change. So we did, the first project was we looked at lung protective ventilation, and thank you for this great presentation we just heard. And in May, after we collected some data, we realized that we only do adherence to recruitment maneuvers was below 5%. And then in July, we did an educational session. We sat together and we said, yeah, we reduced the tidal volume down to 7. We use 7 as a standard, and we were discussing about recruitment maneuvers. And as we heard, it's a controversy about this discussion. But we have a certain workflow. We have dedicated induction rooms. That means we tube patients in the induction room. They're paralyzed, they are under anesthetic, and then we bring them to the operating room. Takes about 1 minute, maybe more than 1 minute, but we don't have anything to keep the PEEP. That means they are paralyzed, they are under anesthetics, with no positive airway pressure. That means it's an ideal world to create atelectasis. So we decided to do recruitment maneuvers when we reattach to the anesthetic machine. It's the right moment because the patient is still under this propofol bolus, and then we start ET control in the OR. At the end of the case, we discussed this, but we support assisted ventilation very early. We teach it to our juniors. And at the end of the case, the surgeons, they are so quick, and we don't want to do recruitment maneuvers when they have the sharp instruments in the belly. So the right moment would be when they have the equipment out of the belly. But at that point of time, we already start to support assisted ventilation. Most of the time, it's too late to do a recruitment maneuver. Good. What happened? It's a nice story. So we did this educational session. We came up to 10%, and then everyone went on holidays, going to the beach, to Sevilla, to the coast here, to Malaga. And what you do on vacations, you forget. You forget all the decisions, and we came back and we had a low adoption. And then we came together, we have a monthly meeting, and then we said, hey, we have to do something about it. We need reminders. So we have a bulletin our head of department sends out every month, and he sent bulletins, reminders. So the last bullet point was, don't forget recruitment maneuvers, and a smiley below it in a nice friendly way. And you said the adoption was quite good, and we came up to above 30%. And given that we do about 40%, 45% laryngeal masks, this is quite a good adoption rate, yeah. And if it comes to change management, yeah, it happens what should happen. What will happen? Yeah, people forget. We are in a multitasking environment with so many distractions. People just forget. And currently we are hovering a lot around 50 to 20%. I think that's still a good number. Yeah, a nice project. So, next project, Care Station Insights. I wanted to talk about sustainability. Peter explained what you can read from this. And and maybe I should explain that the ET control mechanism. How do you save gas? Saving gas means if you have a closed system, you save gas. So whenever you give gas on access, more than the patient can consume, you have waste. And this is something you should avoid. So this is why the ET control algorithm is like this. To explain some curves. So this, the red one is the concentration of the output of the vaporizer. The blue one is the effect site concentration, the end-time concentration of the anesthetic gas. And this is the fresh gas flow. So at this point of time, the clinician decides to have a higher level of depth of anesthesia, higher level of sevoflurane. So what the unit does is it opens the vaporizer fully. this is something we don't really want to do as clinicians. So if we open, we keep the hand on the vaporizer not to forget it. But this is how the machine does it. And then it looks at the curve, at the responding curve. And there's a certain time interval that is set in the machine, and the machine is meant to reach 90% of the target within a certain period of time. So the machine looks at this curve, and here the machine realized, hey, just by opening the vaporizer, I won't reach the target concentration in the reserved time. So the machine increases the fresh gas flow, having gas on excess, and the curve, of course, is responding. And once, and because it's a processor, it can calculate what's happening in the next future, and then it's turning down the gas already when you are reaching the target. So this is proficiency of gas mixing, and this is something, when we try to do that, even if we are keen and motivated, it's very difficult to do. So it's a very efficient concept, and we adopted to it. So we said, when we do ET control, we do it from scratch, so from the beginning. And these were our numbers. And to be honest, I mean, maybe we are just a little bit lazy. It's very easy to find this knob and press it, and the machine does everything. So it's a very nice thing. Actually, these were the numbers, and after, so we did everything right. We went down to 500 mils. It's something you can set, meaning if you are in a steady state, the machine goes down to 500 mils. We had an adoption rate of ET control of 99%. Sometimes we still train our clinicians, our juniors, in fresh gas control. This is important because we don't have it in all parts of the hospital. But we didn't see any further improvement. So the decision was made together with our with our CEO, and that's the guy here. He's also green, of course, yeah. And this statement is from a journal in Freiburg. We have an institution at the university, and they deal with sustainability in the healthcare sector. And they have a journal. They print a journal every year, and this project was described in this year. And he is saying in an interview, sustainability is a question of perspective. We are very happy every time we find a practical way to make something fundamentally better and more sustainable. If this results into additional positive effects, such as cost savings, that's even better. That's very nice, I think. So he decided to invest again in technology, and we loaded up the new software, 300 mil software. That means now we can go down to 300 mils. And these were the results here. You can see there's a reduction of average flows, but not from the beginning. The reason is that you cannot set 300 mils as default. It's an active thing you have to do. And so we sat together and said, what can we do? Another session? No, it was very easy. So we put a sticky label on the machine saying, hey, clinician, can you go lower? Yes, and of course, yes, you can go lower. And we are down now on that level and we were able to see further 80% savings of a very low baseline already. Yeah, that's the sustainability story in Freiburg, and these are two prints or screenshots. This was in 2022. We were running at 8.2 mils per hour, and now we are running on 6.8 mils an hour, and that's really not very much. Yeah. And actually we have to buy our vaporizers ourselves. In the old days, the pharmaceutical companies gave us the vaporizers because it was a good bargain. It was a good. But today we only buy little gases, and so that's why we have to buy the vaporizers ourselves. Good. As a summary, what was the learning from that 12-year experience? Change in low flow practices requires technology and motivation. So technology doesn't help when you don't have a motivated team to drive change. Digital tools are needed to track behavioral change. Yeah, we need data, and when we have data, we can analyze, and we have a good discussion fundament to drive changes. With Care Station Insights, we were able to coach all our staff. We could show them in our monthly meetings, hey, this is our result, so you're doing good. And everyone was motivated to become even better. And changing from 500 meals down to 300 meals, surprisingly made another savings of 18%. And we believe if we had a higher staff turnover, the effect of Care Station Insights would even be much higher. Thank you very much for coming.